Hello and welcome to the Magical Midlife Podcast, where you get a refreshing, uplifting and optimistic perspective on life in your 40s and 50s. I'm your host, Lindsay de Swart, and I'm delighted that you've joined us here today, so let's jump right in. Hey, it's Lindsay. How are you doing? Nice to see you today. So today's a slightly different episode. It's a bit of a funny one, actually, and I'm being very open and very real with you because I'm going through some stuff, as you well know, if you've been listening, and I'm packing up life in Canada and going off to England, and obviously that's quite a lot. So there are quite a few challenges coming up, and so I wanted to share kind of in real time how I'm dealing with those, what I'm focusing on as a healer, because obviously as a healer, you kind of feel there's an element of responsibility that you really need to walk your talk here. So I want to share with you the things that I'm doing and how that's, having an effect on the whole event. So really, I put this down in some notes and I'm going to share it with you. And then I'm also going to share with you some of the wisdom that my friends and actually my podcast team have helped me with, because I really called on them today and I knew that they were the ladies that I really needed to help me through this, because we're all in our midlives and we've all got stuff in common and we've all got similar experiences. And so therefore, as I said with this podcast, it's a women's circle and we're all here to learn from each other and help each other. So I'm hoping what I share with you today will be really helpful if there's anything you're going through, or if there's obviously something coming up in the near future. Because with astrology the way it is and the eclipse season, there's going to be some stuff coming up. And if you manage to avoid it all, let me know. I'd love to know. Just send me a message, will you, and tell me how you've done it. So, okay. So when I put this down into kind of notes, I would say that I've gone from, or what I'm feeling in the tougher moments is very scattered and overwhelmed because there's a lot going on. And I'm trying to do almost too many things and trying to be there for other people. And so that's pretty challenging because I actually need to be there for myself right now too. So scattered and overwhelmed are words that are really big for me right now. And what I want to do, and this is something that I always do in coaching, is go from the place that is the discomfort zone to where you want to be. And so what I'm working towards on a very daily basis, I have to say, is getting back to being centered and grounded. Because when you're centered and grounded, then you don't respond in the same way. You respond rather than you react. Because reacting generally causes drama and generally causes stuff that you then have to fix. So if you can respond rather than react, that's what I'm aiming for. So how am I doing that? So one of the things that I'm really relying on is the fact that I know that spirit knows how to heal soul. Soul knows how to heal your mind, and your mind knows how to heal your body. And if you've seen from my video series that I just released, a mini video series, I'm having some responses going on in my body. So I know that I need to go back and do the work to tune into spirit, to work with my soul, to heal my soul, to then be able to think differently and heal my mind, to then be able to get a different response within my body, which will obviously affect my energy levels, how well I'm sleeping, what I'm exercising, or what exercise I'm doing rather, and just getting all of that back in alignment. So how do you do that, you might ask? So within the shamanic work, they do something called soul retrievals. And in fact, I do something called soul retrievals. So working with spirit and being aligned with spirit, because obviously when you're aligned with spirit, which is doing things like meditation, your stress levels drop, your cortisol drops, you can get into that relaxation, you can get out of the drama, and everything calms down. So that's a really good place to be. So that's a connection with spirit, which also you can really tune into when you're out in nature. So obviously I'm trying to get time out in nature, which I'll tell you a little bit about my adventure in nature yesterday, which was fantastic and hugely restorative. So you do soul retrievals, and what soul retrievals are all about is when you go into your energetic field to then retrieve a part of your soul. So that could be a traumatic memory, facing a traumatic experience, and healing the energy that you've actually buried deep, deep, deep down, because nobody really wants to face it. But when you do a soul retrieval, you go back, you journey back to go and pick that up, to bring it back so you can heal it, so you can learn the lessons from it, get the wisdom from it, and then you incorporate that back into yourself, you integrate it back into who you are today. So, for example, if you've got childhood memories, there's lessons from those that you can now view differently as an adult. So obviously I've been doing I've done a lot of soul retrieval work. And in fact, now where I am with that is to be able to incorporate the person that I was when I was, as a young adult, as a young woman adult, and at a really confident time in your life. And I want to bring that back in to incorporate it with all the experiences that I've had to make me who I am today. And so that I can kind of bond the best of all of those together and the wisdom from all of those lessons through life, so that I can walk forward being a very, informed, I guess, being informed, being wise, being experienced, and move forward with that. So in order to do that, I've called on some of my trusted resources. So my podcast team, as I say, are a small group of midlife women who are all doing podcasts. And in doing our podcasts, we're meeting so many people that it brings up all sorts of past memories, experiences, wisdom for us to share. And so they shared some wisdom with me, and some of the wisdom that I really appreciated from today. And I'm just going to say a thank you to them. So the group is Leslie, Lisa, Masako, and Laura. And Laura wasn't there today because she was sick. But Laura's a very wise soul too. So the wisdom that they shared was really helping me to focus on only doing what I could do today, to allow other things to wait and to be prioritized, so that other things could still happen, but the things I really needed to do, I needed to do today and not be distracted. So fantastic advice. And when you're spinning in a whole bunch of stuff, of course, it's so easy to forget these really brilliant principles. They were also sharing from their life experience, which helped me to then see things in a different way, what I call reframing. And also, just one of the best lines that I totally loved was, going through tough times is tough. And yet that's what helps us grow, and that's what makes us who we are, and that's what helps us move forward. And it's being really grateful for the resources that we do have in place, and for the teachers in our life, because invariably teachers in our life actually are our kids and the people all around us, and friends too. And the other thing that came up within the conversation actually was about women supporting each other. And rather than being competitive, maybe that we were as younger women, now we can actually see the benefit in really supporting each other and being that sisterhood for each other. And that's absolutely what's coming into play now. So I really appreciate that group. And I wanted to share that wisdom with you because they're fantastic lessons. And those lessons are just so easy to forget and to ignore when you really need them. So I said I'd share with you a really healing experience that I had yesterday. Now, first of all, in the morning, so I pulled an angel card or an oracle card, which I often do. I do love to do that. And sometimes I do it obviously on social media, and other times I just do it for me. And sometimes I journal with it, and sometimes I sit with it, I meditate with it, and other times I take action on it. Anyway, yesterday's one was Gaia, which Mother Nature, and I didn't take action on it. I thought I was going to, because I thought, okay, I'll go out and walk the dogs. It'll be great. Anyway, then the day took over, as that happens. And I knew in the afternoon I was going riding with my old riding instructor, Sue. And Sue said, come over to my place because you haven't seen my place. So I said, yeah, absolutely. So I jumped in my car and off I went. And she lives in the forest, so that was beautiful. Anyway, so I thought I'd be having a riding lesson. But she said, oh no, let's go into the trails. I went, oh, fantastic. So she tacked on one of her horses for me and we rode off into the forest. And we saw like the maple syrup lines where they tap maple syrup, and we had to duck under some of those. And it was super fun and a really different experience for me because I haven't done too much trail riding since I've been here. And now I remember why I wanted a horse in the first place. Anyway, so we did the trail ride and it was beautiful. And of course, I was surrounded by nature, which is exactly what my card had said I needed to be in that energy so I could really ground and get centered. And so we did the trail ride and we saw the trillium flowers and we smelt the trees and oh, it was just beautiful. And there was, you know, the breeze, and then we got mosquitoes. So obviously part of nature. Anyway, so we got back to her farm and then we untacked the horses and we put them back into the field and we just stood and we were talking and, you know, cuddling the horses. You might have seen a picture on Instagram of one of her horses who is particularly affectionate. And it was just lovely to have a really good horse cuddle, especially since I sold my horse recently. And then I sort of just started tuning into the horses, her horses, to find out, you know, if any of them wanted to take some of the Reiki energy. And they, you know, they had varying different interests, and that was absolutely as expected because you've got to trust the horse knows what they're doing. And I'm sure if you've tuned in, you know that I'm very much into being with horses, but also what's really expanding now is the healing energy, working with horses. And I've been really fortunate to be able to work with other people's horses, which has been an incredible learning experience for me. Anyway, so I tuned into Sue's youngest horse and I just got a sense there was something going on with one of her chakras. So I wanted to go and just, you know, put my hands over that particular chakra to tune into that energy. And so I did that and she just fell asleep, which is very common when horses are allowing themselves to be healed and they just relax. And in fact, there's a huge lesson in that for us because when we need to heal, the best thing that we can do is give ourselves the relaxation time for it to happen. So this horse was just standing there just like fast asleep, which was fantastic. And I just stood, and because you really get a sense of where your hands need to be and how long they need to be there for. And then the horse will, you know, tell you that they just move away if they've had enough or it's done. And anyway, so as I say, I talked with Sue about what I was picking up and, you know, we talked about what it could mean and the lessons or the learning or the wisdom we could get for it. And then the horse was ready to go, so off she went. And she went back with her friends and she stood just by the hay feeder and just fell asleep. So obviously she was processing. And as we all need to do when we're shifting energy and when things are changing in our lives, we need more rest. So this was a perfect example of learning from this horse how we need to deal with the stress in our body. When we need rest, we need to take the rest. And when we're processing stuff and we're shifting stuff, we need more rest than we'd normally give ourselves. Anyway, a really funny thing happened. So we were standing at the gate watching the horses over there by the hay feeder. And this young horse just lifted her neck, almost like she kind of lifted her neck way up. So it was like a giraffe is the only way to describe it. And then this kind of wave of energy just waved down her body. And then she just relaxed right down, head right down again, and just fell asleep again. And Sue and I looked at each other and went, has she done that before? No, she's never done that before. And she said, have you seen that before? And I said, I have seen that before. And it's a processing and a shifting of whatever energy we just released by the work that we just did on her chakras. And there was a couple of lessons in there for me. One was to watch how the horse processed the information and how she allowed her body to process the shifts and the changes, which is, as I say, a lesson for all of us. And the other thing that was a real lesson in there for us both was don't be too busy to rush off to the next thing. Because if we'd just finished the healing and then gone, oh, right, we're done now, let's go, we wouldn't have seen the evidence that she was clearly processing something. So I guess the lesson within that is it's that whole, stop and smell the roses. It was an absolute time of stop and appreciate where you are, appreciate who you're with, appreciate what's just happened, what is happening. And then on my way home, normally I'll turn on a podcast when I'm in the car, but I didn't turn on anything because I just needed to sit with what had happened. It was such a fabulous experience on so many levels. It was exactly what I needed, according to Gaia, for my own healing. I needed to get the lesson from the horse about stopping and processing and allowing yourself to heal. And then on the way home, I needed to sit in appreciation of what had just happened. So I also, because I know Sue listens to the podcast, so thank you, Sue, for allowing me to experience that and allowing me to spend the time with your horses, because it was absolutely magical. And then also today, I got this reminder from a friend stroke coach, and he left me a message, and we were talking about, he left a message regarding some business stuff. And then afterwards he left another message just saying, "And how are you?" And that was my catalyst to know that I was not great. And I needed to call for help. I needed to call on the wisdom of my friends. And we have a podcast meeting scheduled all the time. And so rather than sit back quietly and not say anything or try and offer any help, I put my hand up and said, I really need help today. And allowed the sisterhood to step in, to hold me, to support me, to guide me. And the reason I'm sharing that with you is I want to urge you to do the same. It's very easy to keep soldiering on and to keep moving on to the next thing so fast. And when things are tough, I really encourage you to reflect, to take the time, to call for help, and to do all the things that are exactly what we need to do, but we don't, because we're trying to manage everything on our own. So allow yourself to learn from the most natural energy in the world, which is the sisterhood. And this sisterhood of magical midlife, which was my whole intention when I started this podcast in the first place, was for us to provide that for each other. And then on that note, knowing that we need to take the time and we need to allow that energy to process, I am going to take a break from the podcast over the summer while I do this move, because I know my family needs me right now and I need me right now. So I really hope that you will come back and join me in September. And in the meantime, I wish you the hugest happiness over the summer. I hope it's good for you. I hope that this podcast today was helpful and insightful and supportive for whatever you might be facing. And on that note, thank you so much for listening, and I shall see you in September, which I thoroughly look forward to, with some renewed energy, a new place to live, and some fantastic guests. And in fact, I'm going to invite all of my podcast team and sisterhood to be on the podcast with me to share their wisdom with you too, because you'll love them just as I do. Okay, thank you for listening, and I'll see you in September. Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you've enjoyed the conversation, please come and leave a review. If you go to the Apple Podcasts app and scroll down to the bottom of the podcast page, and then you'll find the ratings and review section. Please invite your friends to come and listen by sharing the link. And you can join the conversation and let me know who you'd like to hear interviewed and what topics you'd like discussed over at Facebook on the Magical Midlife group. You can also find me on Instagram at Lindsay de Swart, where the conversation will also continue. I can't wait to see you on the next episode. And once again, keep living your magical midlife.